All right, so this is Right Triangle Trig Day 2, where we do learn new material. We learn how to solve for missing angles. But before we do that, let's go ahead and do a warm up. I will do 1 and 3 with you, and then pause the video and try 2 and 4 on your own. What is the cosine of angle A? So I'm gonna go ahead and write SOHCAHTOA at the top right here. Oops, doesn't look like an H. SOHCAHTOA. Okay, so I want the cosine. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So I need to know what the adjacent side is over the hypotenuse side of angle A. So here's angle A. What's the side that touches it? 5 over the hypotenuse, 13. And that's it. All right, number 3 is solve for x. You're going to have to write a trig equation. And how do I do that? X is already labeled, so that's nice. Here's my angle. I need to know which one's opposite, which one's adjacent, which one's hypotenuse, but I don't need this one over here. So that's the one I don't need. Okay, so let's start with this one right here. This side doesn't touch my angle at all, so that is the opposite side. This side right here touches the angle, but it's the hypotenuse. Which trig function uses O and H? Sine does, so I'm going to write down sine. My angle comes next, 23 degrees equals, and then my ratio. Remember, it's opposite over hypotenuse, O over H, x over 21. Solving for a missing side, so I can put this over 1 and then cross multiply. This has x in it, so I like to multiply it first. 1 times x is x. And then I have 21 times the sine of 23. Notice x is already solved for, so I can pick up my calculator now. Now, if you look at my calculator, my whole calculator got cleared, so I'm in the wrong mode. If you need to change your modes, you need to go down to degree, hit enter, and now it's in degree mode. Okay, 21 sine of 23, hit enter. It says round to the nearest hundredth in the directions, so that is 8.21. Okay, pause the video, try 2 and 4. I'll give you the answers. If you got it, you can fast forward through my explanation. All right, number 2 is 24/7, and 4 is x equals 27.37. All right, let's see if you got them wrong. Why? Here's angle H. I want tangent, which is like TOA, opposite over adjacent. So which side's opposite? This one doesn't touch it at all, so that's opposite. Which one's adjacent? The side that touches it that's not the hypotenuse. Opposite, 24 over adjacent, 7. This one here, here's my angle. This side touches it, so that's adjacent. It's not the hypotenuse. This one touches it also, but it's the hypotenuse. Which trig function uses A and H? Cosine. So I'm going to do cosine of 64 degrees is equal to, and then my fraction, A over H, 12 over X. Put your trig function over 1 and cross multiply. I like to cross multiply with whatever has X in it first. So that's X times the cosine of 64 is equal to 1 times 12, which is 12. But X is not done being by itself yet, so I have to get it by itself by dividing both sides by cosine of 64. Divide by cosine of 64. Those cancel, and I have x equals, type it in your calculator, 12 divided by cosine 64, close the parentheses, hit enter, and you have 27.37. Okay, so let's move on to what we're doing today. So still solving right triangles. It says we can also use trigonometry to find missing angles in a right triangle. What equation will be set up to solve for x? Okay, so if we're still using trig here, we start by circling our angle, right? And we say, okay, how are my two sides related? This does not touch, so this is opposite. This right here is the hypotenuse. Which trig function uses O and H? O and H, so SOHCAHTOA. O and H is used by sine. So sine of my angle always comes next, which is x, equals, and then I need my ratio, opposite over adjacent, 4/10. So how do we solve this is the question. We have to think, okay? I will tell you how to not solve this. People will say divide by sign, and it's like, I mean 3 letters of the alphabet, just divide by them? No. Sign doesn't have a value unless it's sign of and then an angle measure, okay? So we can't divide by sign. That's not how it works. And this does not say sign times x. It says sign of x. Okay, so how do we solve it? Let's think about this. How do you solve these 3 equations? So this one, we would subtract 5 from both sides. This one, we would divide both sides by 2. This one, we would square root plus or minus, right? So what are we doing right here? If I have addition and I subtract, or if I have multiplication and I divide, if I have a square and I square root, what are those operations called? They are called inverses. So now let's look back at sine of x equals 4/10. That's what we had above. Sine is an operation, and we didn't know how to undo it, right? Is it multiplication? Is it division? Is it addition? Is it a subtraction? Is it a square root? No, it's none of those. This operation that we use to undo sine is sine inverse, okay? Now it says this is pronounced sine inverse. So it looks like with your eyes sine to the -1, okay? But it's not sine to the -1. It's sine inverse. Okay, so let's try a couple problems here. We'll do 2 together, and then I'll have you try 2 on your own, and then we'll do some mixed practice. I'm all mixed up. Okay, so I can't use Pythagorean theorem because I'm not even solving first side, so don't even think about it, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to circle my angle. I'm going to say, how are my 2 sides related? This side right here doesn't touch it at all. That's opposite. This is the hypotenuse. All right, SOHCAHTOA up here again. The more you write it, the better you get at it. Okay, I need O and H, which is sine. So I'm going to write down sine. My angle always comes next, which is x, equals. And then I have the opposite side, 5 over the hypotenuse, 7. Okay, so now remember, to get rid of this sine right here, we are going to use sine inverse. So we'll sine inverse this side, but what we do to one side, we have to do to the other. So we have to sine inverse this side. These sine inverse and sine will cancel each other out. You have x equals sine inverse of 5/7. And now we're going to type that in our calculator. If you look, sine inverse is on your calculator. It's in blue right above the sine button. Since it's in blue, I have to hit the second button and then sine. And notice you get sine inverse right there. 5 divided by 7. Close the parentheses, hit enter, and you get an answer. This says round to the nearest 10th. Round to the nearest 10th is different directions than yesterday. This is 1 decimal place. So I get x equals 45 point, and is it 5 or 6? 6. And then don't forget degrees because this was an angle. And that's it. All right, let's try another one. Here's my angle. How is this side related? It's opposite. It doesn't touch it at all. This side right here touches it, and it's not the hypotenuse, so it's adjacent. Which trig function uses O and A? Tangent. So I'm going to write down tangent. My angle always comes next. My ratio comes last. Opposite over adjacent. 11/13. So I have to get rid of tangent. How do you think I get rid of tangent? Tangent inverse. Tangent inverse. So you're going to tangent inverse both sides. These will cancel, and you have x equals tangent inverse of 11/13. And now I can put that in my calculator. I'm going to hit second and then tangent. That'll give me tangent inverse. 11 divided by 13. Hit enter. And I get x equals 40.2 degrees. Remember, round to the nearest 10th were the directions for angles. All right, go ahead and pause the video and try these 2 on your own. You can come back and see how you did. All right, A, you get C, you get 62.5 degrees. And D, you get 23.6 degrees. So if you had trouble with either of those, watch this next part. If not, you can fast forward to the mixed practice. Okay, so my angle is right here. This touches it. That's adjacent. This right here is the hypotenuse. A and H is cosine. So I'm going to do cosine of my angle, which is x degrees, is equal to adjacent, which is 6, over hypotenuse, which is 13. I need to get rid of the cosine so I can get x by itself. So I'm going to do cosine inverse. Cosine inverse. These will cancel. I have x equals cosine inverse of, and you always put this in parentheses, 6 over 13. Type it in your calculator. Cosine inverse, 6 divided by 13. Hit enter. And you get 62.5 degrees. Last one. Here's my angle. This right here doesn't touch it at all. That's opposite. This right here touches it, but it's the hypotenuse. O and H, we use sine. Sine of the angle equals, and then opposite over hypotenuse, 4 over 10. If you look, this is the problem from that we started with. So to get rid of sine, because we have to solve for x, right, we're going to use sine inverse. Use sine inverse. These cancel. You have x equals sine inverse of 4/10. Put that in your calculator, and that'll give us our angle. Sine inverse of 4 divided by 10. Close the parentheses, hit enter, and you get 23.6 degrees. Okay, so the rest of this is mixed practice. You'll see it's in word problem form, and then there's some that aren't. Okay, so it's just a mixture of all. You'll either be using inverse because you're solving for an angle, or you're cross multiplying because you're solving for a side. Okay, directions, round sides to the nearest hundredth, and angles to the nearest tenth. Okay, that's how your test is going to look too, so make sure you're paying attention to that. All right, this says, what if a restaurant needed to build a wheelchair ramp? So a wheelchair ramp would look like this, right? For its customers. The angle created by the ramp on the ground is recommended to be 5 degrees. If the vertical distance from the sidewalk to the front door is 2 feet, how long will the ramp be? Okay, so I know that I'm going to end up drawing a right triangle for this, so I might as well draw one right now. I could have left that, but I want to have my iPad correct it to be nicer. Here's my right angle. Okay, remember, this is your ramp, in case you were wondering. All right. The angle created by the ramp and the ground. Here's the ground, right? So the angle in between the ramp and the ground, that's this angle right here, is 5 degrees. If the vertical distance from the sidewalk to the front door is 2 feet, vertical distance, that's this. How long will the ramp need to be? The ramp is right here, that's my x. Okay, so now I'm going to use trigonometry to solve this. Here's my angle. This is opposite because it doesn't touch it, and this is the hypotenuse. O and H tells me to use sine. Sine of my angle, which is 5 degrees, is equal to, and I'm going to write my ratio, O, which is 2, over H, which is x. Now, are you solving for an angle, so I should use inverse, or are you solving for a side? If you're solving for a side, sides we cross multiply. Put this over 1. X times the sine of 5 is equal to 2. Divide both sides by the sine of 5. And you have x equals, I type that in my calculator, 2 divided by sine of 5, close the parentheses, hit enter, and I get 22 points. Since this is a side, I'm rounding to the nearest thousandth, which is 2 decimal places. 95, and then I'm going to put units on it, which is feet. All right, next one. Philip got locked out of his house, but remembers he left his bedroom window open. He walks 30 feet from the house and measures the angle from his feet to the window to be 28 degrees. In the garage, there's a 20-foot ladder. How high off the ground is the window? Will Philip be able to get into the window? Or sorry, to get into the window. Okay, so let's draw our right triangle here. Doesn't matter if you draw it this way or the other way. Okay. All right, so we have the ladder. This is our ladder. This is the house, right? It's like over here. And this is his third floor up there. It's not the roof, but that's fine. Okay, so it says Philip got blocked out of his house. Here's his house over here, right? But he remembers he left his bedroom window open. His bedroom window is right here, okay? He walks 30 feet from the house. So this is 30 feet right here because he walks 30 feet this direction, right? And he measures that the angle from his feet to the window is 28 degrees. So from the feet to the window, 28 degrees. In the garage, there's a 20-foot ladder. How high off the ground is the window? So we haven't put up the ladder yet and knowing if it'll hit the window or not. So we want to know how high off the ground is the window. So that's the question is what's this? X right here. So right now we're not using the 20. Okay. All right, so let's solve for X. Here's my angle. This is opposite. This is adjacent. So we're using tangent. Tangent of 28, because that's my angle, equals opposite, which is X, over adjacent, which is 30. I'm solving for a side, so I'm going to put this over 1. Cross multiply. X equals 30 times tangent of 28. I'll put that in my calculator. 30 times tangent of 28, close parentheses, hit enter. This is a side length, so 59.95 feet. Oops, I lost the 5 somehow. There we go. Okay, so the window is 15.95 feet off the ground. So the question is, will Philip be able to get the window? He has a 20-foot ladder. Will he be able to reach the window if it's 15.95 feet off the ground? Yes, he will be able to get in. He has a 20-foot ladder. And I just reset my calculator again on accident. Boo. Mode. Radian. That's what you get for using an online calculator, right? Okay. This next one says, consider the relationship established by the equation sine of 12.8 equals 2/9. Draw the triangle that represents this relationship. So it's a right triangle, of course, because it's using sine, which is part of SOHCAHTOA. All right, so what's this right here? Is this a side length or an angle? That's an angle. Does it matter where we put it? No, it doesn't matter at all. So we can put it wherever we want. So let's put it right here. It's going to put it at the 90 degrees, okay? All right, and then I also know that sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So the opposite side is 2, and the hypotenuse is 9. Okay, I drew it. Wow. Next it says solve for all the missing parts. So let's do that right below. I'm going to copy this. Let's solve for the missing part. So first off, I can get this missing angle right here. The fastest way is just to do 90 minus 12.8. 90 minus 12.8 is 77.2. So this angle, I'm going to do it in a different color so it jumps out. 77.2 degrees. All right, now I need the third side, okay? I can use SOHCAHTOA, trigonometry, or I can use Pythagorean theorem. I'm going to use Pythagorean theorem because, hey, why not? It's one missing side. X squared plus 2 squared equals 9 squared. X squared plus 4 equals 81. Subtract 4 from both sides. X squared equals 77. And then square root to solve. X equals, I don't have to do plus or minus because this is a side length. And then I can do square root of 77. Enter. 8.77. It's a side length, so 2 decimal places. Now, you might be asking yourself, why didn't you simplify the radical? It's because in the directions I wanted, at the beginning of this, all angles in the mixed practice to the nearest tenth and all side lengths to the nearest hundredth. You could have also used SOHCAHTOA, so you could have said, here's this angle. I'll use this one, which is opposite, and then this is adjacent, and then use tangent. You could have used it to get the same answer. Okay. Find all the missing sides and angles in this triangle. Okay, so let's start with, can I find this missing angle right now. Well, I could if I wanted to, but I need this angle, right? Like I don't need it, but I would like it, okay? So I say, okay, well, can I find the missing side? Sure can. So let's use the Pythagorean theorem to find the missing side. Call it x. X squared plus 3 squared equals 5 squared. X squared plus 9 equals 25. Minus 9. X squared equals 16. Square root plus or minus. Square root plus or minus. X equals plus or minus 4. I know it's a positive length, so I'm just going to write 4. Okay, so now I still need to find the missing angles. So it doesn't matter which one I find first. I'm going to call this one right here x. Okay? And then I'm going to use 2 of my sides. I'm going to use the 3 and the 5 because I don't even know if the 4 is, like, what if I made a mistake? I didn't, but what if I did make a mistake? So this right here, this is touches it, that's adjacent. This right here touches it, but it's not adjacent, it's hypotenuse. So I'm going to use cosine. Cosine of my angle, which is x degrees, equals adjacent, which is 3, over hypotenuse, which is 5. I am not cross multiplying because I'm not solving for a missing side. I'm solving for a missing angle. I need to get rid of cosine. How do I get rid of cosine? Cosine inverse. So I have to do that to both sides. X equals cosine inverse of 3/5. Cosine inverse, 3 divided by 5. Hit enter. This is an angle, so we're doing the nearest tenth. 53.1 degrees. So now I'm going to erase the 53.1, or sorry, the x, and put 53.1 degrees. What about this angle? I can get it real quick by doing 90 minus 53.1. 90 minus 53.1, hit enter, and I got 36.9 degrees. All right, last one. Find all the missing sides and angles in the triangle. I can find this angle right now, right? I can do 90 minus 17.7. 90 minus 17.7. And that is going to give me 72.3. Now I have to solve either of my sides. It doesn't matter which one I solve first, so I'll just call this one right here x. Okay, I need to circle my angle. I need to circle my angle. You have 2 angles. I'm going to use the one that was typed there in case I made a mistake on mine. This is opposite. This is adjacent. So I'm using tangent. Tangent of 17.7 equals opposite, which is x, over adjacent, which is 13. Solving for a missing side, so I'm going to put this over 1 and cross multiply. 1 times x is x, and then I have 13 times tangent of 17.7. 13 times tangent of 17.7. Hit enter. I have x equals 4.15. 4.15. So I'm going to erase this, and I'm going to put 4.15 right here. Now you can use Pythagorean theorem to find your third side, or you can use another trig function. I'm going to use another trig function, so I'm going to say this is x now, or I can call it y if I want. Yeah, I'll call it y. Here's my angle. This is adjacent still, but this time this is hypotenuse. So I'm going to use cosine instead. Cosine of 17.7 equals adjacent, which is 13, over hypotenuse, which is y. Put this over 1 because you're solving for a side. Cross multiply. Y times the cosine of 17.7 is equal to 13. Divide by cosine of 17.7. 13 divided by cosine of 17.7 is 13.65. So y is 13.65. And there you go.